and what have been the outcomes. And I just want to take a look at a couple of projects that we did. We worked with the Fairview FSU College of Engineering, their civil and environmental engineering on a stormwater management study for Calhoun County. Calhoun County, again, located in the Florida Panhandle, basically a landlocked county, rural, poor, rain-induced flooding from Hurricane Michael not only impacted the low-lying streets, but often went into homes and into businesses. Their stormwater management systems weren't able to accommodate the quantity of water that was coming in. And there was also a question about the quality. And you've got water coming in off of architectural shingle on the roof and going into your drainage systems and then seeping out into tributaries, into lakes, into rivers. What is that doing to the quality of your water? So they're working with Calhoun County on both a stormwater management study that both looks at quantity and quality. And I want to emphasize that all these projects that I'm talking about are either integrated into a research project by the faculty member, are integrated into curricular offering, particularly in engineering where you have capstone courses, or part of a service learning sort of enterprise. So it's faculty mentored student teams going out and actually doing this work. This is one project that I'm actually tracking long term. It's an indoor recreational resiliency center, which will be located in Bay County, in Panama City. And if any of you have ever been to Florida, Florida thrives off of tourism. And so during the hurricane, they had to house many of the residents, particularly those living in underserved communities, in schools. Schools are designed to support, serve as shelters. However, schools were not designed to support long-term sheltering. So one of the things that they're looking at, particularly for those communities that are underserved, is how can you create a dual-use resiliency center that has a blue sky purpose, and in this case, an indoor recreational center, to support community gatherings, plus serve as an incrementer for tourism to begin to generate some funds, and also provide a hardened shelter able to withstand a Cat 5 storm in times of disaster. So there are actually two schools working on this, Fairview FSU College of Engineering, along with Drexel University College of Engineering, and our community partners here, our community stakeholders are the Bay County Long-Term Recovery Task Force. I'm really interested to see how this actual project will go. We've gone from ideation to point of ideation to a kickoff that we had last month, and they hope to have the final. They're looking at geotechnical engineering aspects, architectural engineering aspects, stormwater management, the whole gamut. I've passed one, but that's okay. Well, let me just briefly touch on this one. Not all of the projects that we work on actually focus on recovering or restoring existing facilities that were damaged. FEMA is a proponent of looking long-term in order to build resiliency. Here we have this Tyndall Parkway Corridor Master Plan. We've got two coastal cities in Bay County, primarily poor communities that were underserved and underdeveloped pre-Hurricane Michael. Hurricane Michael only exacerbated those conditions. They are now looking to engage in a project that will leverage their proximity to Tyndall Air Force Base, which is undergoing a multi-million-dollar rebuild, also their proximity to the coast. How can they take this and build a corridor that will raise their visibility and begin to lift them as communities of choice for housing? If those who are stationed at Tyndall want to buy a house, contractors traveling back and forth along that 5-mile corridor might want to stop, and they might also build a house because you can have a contractor working with Tyndall for years So they are looking at ways to leverage that, and we've got 3 universities working with them just on the engineering concepts of that master plan. So I know I've gone over. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our last presenter.
David's a master here at finding the right PowerPoint. He's looking over his shoulder. He's doing really well. Thank you for inviting me here. And before I get into my talk, I guess I'm the academic here. I'm not going to talk about research so much. But what I do want to do is thank DHS, the Office of Science and Technology Director, Office of University of Preparedness. What they've done over the last several years has just been consistent supporting work that we've done. And we've had 3 PhDs, 2 of them are now in universities. We've had 8 or 9 or 10 master's students. I started writing them down, I lost track. We've had 4 grants from the National Science Foundation that have sprung up from this. So we've published, we won an award for research and so on, but it's this consistent kind of steady support that has allowed a transition, that's allowed this progression of the research into a transition into deep community engagement. We started this a few years ago, and we've been really trying hard to work at the local level. I'll talk about that more in a bit. But basically, the theme of the work has come out where even the smallest communities I've been observing, I'm adopting, my colleague says, they're swimming in plans of, well, that's a plethora of plans. Even the smallest communities can have 4 or 5 in place. There's climate action plans, there are resilience plans, there are hazard mitigation plans, but also there's comprehensive plans. The Department of Transportation requires transportation plans where they're going to make their investments, as well as HUD has consolidated plans for affordable housing. These all have a spatial context. So this is kind of what we found originally, that mitigation plan is kind of a little engine that could, but it's not woven into the broader fabric. It's not well coordinated with a lot of these other efforts. And there's kind of brand new ideas, but mitigation planning has been at it the longest when we compare it to other types of planning that deal with risk and climate and resilience and climate adaptation. So here's kind of the problem. I was on a committee of the National Research Council of the National Academy of Sciences about 4 or 5 years, 6 years ago now. And this was right after Hurricane Sandy hit. So I decided to look at some of the plans in even these smallest communities, very small communities. And this was one. And on the left, I looked at the hazard mitigation plan. This is what it said in the plan. It had a map. Pretty obvious, severe loss. And I looked at the comprehensive plan on the right. The areas in purple are waterfront redevelopment districts. The areas in tan is the downtown. And they're doing all kinds of work for economic revitalization. But it's in the same exact geographic locations. And these kinds of conflicts appear quite frequently, and there's not a lot of cross-local agency and even local community-based organization collaboration on their efforts. So what we decided to do with this research originally was we wanted to develop kind of this technique for a spatial evaluation of the level of coordination of these networks of plans at the neighborhood scale. Think resilience at the neighborhood scale, think spatial, right? These plans and the policy projections in these plans are variable, just like the natural landscape, just like demographic groups across the city, so are the plan policies. And what we wanted to do also is say, well, are these plans really targeting areas in most of need? And there's all kinds of ways you can measure need in terms of, we looked at vulnerability, and physical vulnerability, social vulnerability, ecological vulnerability. One could develop indices and then apply these across the landscape of the community, the planning landscape. So basically what it is this kind of overlaying process. When we try to, I won't get into the details of the scoring, but basically we're using GIS, and if you don't have GIS, you can actually use PDF versions of maps. We do that with small, low capacity communities as well sometimes. But what we basically try to overlay each plan And then what's the direction at the neighborhood scale of each proposed action in the plans? Do they propose to change the zoning ordinance? Do they propose to make a capital improvement program from parks and recreation, transportation, water, sewer, these kinds of things? What's the parks and rec plan? Does that, give any attention to hazard mitigation? It could. And of course, the hazard mitigation plan. So what we try to do is score the plans. And blue is good, and lots of bright blue is really good, note the hazard mitigation plan. And red is not so good. Red is actually your increasing vulnerability. And if you could look, we kind of make a composite score of a plan. And the bright red areas, these are 100-year floodplain along the coast, and then inland, what would the 100-year floodplain look like in the year 2100 under an intermediate projection of sea level rise? And the areas in blue tend to be, we're going to reduce vulnerability, and the areas in red or bright red are we're going to increase vulnerability. That's how the scoring system works. And it's kind of a three-phase process. We work through with communities. What we try to do is say, well, what are your districts? What are your neighborhoods? Sometimes it's census tracts, sometimes it's locally defined neighborhoods. And then what are the hazard zones in those neighborhoods, okay? And we try to identify those. And then we try to look at phase 2 here. What's the vulnerability in each one, in each neighborhood? And in this case, it's physical vulnerability of using parcel data for a property tax. We try to get an average value per square foot in each district. And again, we could be looking at social vulnerability or physical. We have lots of publications, ecological vulnerability, and these different things. Then we score the plans. So if you look at phase 2, the bright red is the downtown of this small community on the North Carolina coast. And it's highly physically vulnerable. It's never going to get a big seawall or a big, anything like that. But and if you look at the same geographic area downtown, if we come up with a composite score for the proposed actions in the plan, you're going to see it's actually increasing vulnerability. It's a light pink, a light red, but it's still coming out. We're going to do more. We're going to change our land use regulations to encourage mixed use and higher density. We're going to look at our transportation plan. We're going to make complete streets and more parking and that kind of thing because we want to adopt economic development. So those are the kinds of things going on in downtown. In the upper blue there under phase 3, that's a fairly high physically vulnerable area. It's also a low-income community, primarily minority, African American. But what they did there was the Parks and Recreation Plan and the Hazard Mitigation Plan worked together to do a buyout, create parks, pool your funding, move a low-income neighborhood out, okay, of the hazardous area. So it can work in multiple directions. So what do? We again, lots of research and so on, but we wanted to create something where we could move, translate the research to practice, and that's what the rest of it I'll talk about. And we created a guidebook, user-friendly, and then we also wanted to engage a series of communities, which I'll talk about in a minute. But in the guidebook, it outlays, well, here's the technical tasks. We need to score the plan. And it's basically the communities need to do it. We ask the local agency leads, we ask for a lead planner, or a lead emergency management staff person, and then to work with the leaders of other local agencies that have adopted these plans or are responsible for implementing them. We also work with them in assessing the vulnerability. And we also work with them, and they have to identify conflicts and opportunities across these plans, because sometimes there could be an unknown opportunity you could get a benefit you weren't thinking about. But what we do is we help with technical assistance through the first, as the university team, we have a team of people that do deep engagement. Jamie Masterson, my colleague at Texas A&M, who I've been in the last few years, we do deep engagement, and she leads that effort. And what we try to do is we ask the staff of the community itself to contribute staff time, GIS data, they have it, the mapping and so on. We also give them a one-day training, and we also work with them, but they have to self-evaluate your plans. You do the data and you run it on your own. You take ownership of it. And in communities we've all been working in so far, they seek public input. They engage the elected officials, the mayor, they have to get approval oftentimes for contributions. really pushed it to go out into the community and leverage community organizations. So here's what we've done so far. We worked with a series of communities. One we've completed. We're doing after action reports, and I'm very interested in the outcome and the metrics. We're trying to, it's hard sometimes to measure the performance of a plan, because it's oftentimes it's about building a social networks, the process of doing it, it's taking ownership of resilience when you're actually engaging and doing some of the analysis. It could be changing the zoning ordinance to lower the density in a hazardous area, and that takes permitting and so on. So it's hard for us to track everything, but we'd certainly like to do that at some point. And Norfolk is, I think, one of the leading examples, U.S. examples of doing resilience planning. And they've used for a whole variety of ways to use the results of the scorecard, but they're better. They never looked. They're a Rockefeller Resilient City 100 Resilient City. They did a vision statement out of that. They have a comprehensive plan, all this, but they never looked at the hazard mitigation plan. And they published, they had the Rockefeller plan, it's up there on the website and everything, the comprehensive plan. This is the problem oftentimes. So the emergency manager at the table is reminding them when we're trying to build this process. And the social, I guess the socialized resilience mitigation across the local agencies. And Nashua is the one that's done the really deep engagement. And I would just like to say that they make it fun. They run all-day workshops. They went out and applied for the League of Cities. We got a grant, and they built in the DHS-supported Plan for Integration for Resiliency Scorecard as a centerpiece of what they're doing. And we're also working with NIST, and they have a resilience planning guide. And I'm about to, in December, to go up there and find out how they develop this crosswalk between the scorecard we've been working on with the community and this planning guide. And there was an emergency manager who was leading the way, Justin Kings. He's an amazing young fellow. We're also working in Houston. We've leveraged a larger National Science Foundation CRISP award that focuses on infrastructure recovery. But we're interested in the neighborhood effects, social disruption, as well as economic disruption at the neighborhood scale. Interestingly, because of our deep engagement, we are working with the research design for the National Science Foundation grant. So you need to work, we're going to work in a set of poor communities and do a comparative of the recovery with a set of wealthier communities, all equally damaged. Hurricane Harvey was blinded by that, but so it affected everybody, but it's the recovery. And with the scorecard, we're actually engaged in 3 neighborhoods on the east side of Houston. And they said, we want to learn how to use this scorecard because we think we're not getting enough, right? And there's a lot of planning going on in Houston, not land use regulatory driven planning, but there's a lot of infrastructure planning and a lot of neighborhood and scale economic development planning. And so there's who's getting attention and who's not in terms of resources flowing through these plans. So we're also working with the Port of Corpus Christi. They're going through a tremendous expansion of their port, and they're affecting their workforce of the surrounding communities because the port covers 2 counties and 4 municipalities. And they're worried about their workforce. And so they're worried about the resilience of the communities around them as they expand. And a small underserved community, they've done a comprehensive plan to guide the recovery, and we've been working with them closely too in Rockport. So I think, lessons learned quickly. I think it's trying to translate this this data we've done and all this science into actionable knowledge. And in some cases, the places are actually going into the community. Nashua is a big one, and Houston as well, and leveraging community champions in going through the year-long process that we work. And some have made it, I won't get into it, but particularly Nashua makes it a fun process. They're using gaming, simulating, and these kinds of things, tabletop exercises, and nudge, don't change in terms of change. So also internationally, we've been doing this in China, we've been doing it in the Netherlands, and many cities in the US. So what I want to do is finally, the last slide is that DHS has supported a partnership with the American Planning Association. That's the largest planning organization in the world. There's 45,000 members to promulgate the scorecard. And they have a big existing set of tools and web-based platforms for litigation planning, but they want to integrate the resilient scorecard into it. They're going to do training, resources, and to reach a broad-based audience. And also the notion is to create a national cadre of training practitioners to work with communities. Thank you.
I'll start off, just kind of a question for the group, although Dave, I'd ask you maybe to lead in. So if you look at, you weren't in the morning session, so I apologize, but I'll give you some context. So in the President's Roundtable, there was some discussion around universities typically and used to be the go-to for addressing the nation's grand challenges. But that doesn't seem to be happening anymore. And particularly, it's not occurring within the emergency management community. Given that context and what you see as the emerging trends and drivers that will impact the emergency management community, what are your thoughts on how we can change that dynamic?
So that's a great question. I think we got to change that bottom up. Not every emergency manager, most emergency managers work in a community where there is a university. And I don't know that we, as a field of practice, have oriented ourselves to tapping into the capability there, right? If there's a university there, that means there are research projects underway, that means there are graduate students looking for research projects and writing theses and developing their dissertations and all these other opportunities to grapple with the problems that we know we're dealing with, but we don't have the expertise to address as practitioners. And so I don't think that we reverse that top-down at a macro level. I think we do that by getting traction and running with traction, right? You're not going to get a home run on every single project, but if you throw a few things out there and open the doors, you'll find some really interesting things. And we heard several examples of them already. Put you on the spot. I was actually wondering if you were talking how some of the project examples that you were talking through came to be in terms of that engagement with universities.
Sure. So when we started this process, as Curtis mentioned, when NDRS is activated, and depending on the scale and scope of the disaster, it determines whether or not we're going to activate all 6 RSFs: housing, infrastructure systems, economic development, natural cultural resources, and community planning and community development. For Hurricane Michael, what I did was I leveraged a program through EPA. EPA has a Colleges and Underserved Communities Partnership Program where they are already developing relationships with universities nationwide to deal with issues impacting underserved communities. For me, that was a strategic decision because they already had those relationships. I didn't necessarily need to go in, and that's one of the things at next step recommendations. Universities perhaps need to do a better job of developing capability profiles so that when there is a disaster, whether or not you have a resiliency officer, which I know is one of David's questions, you have a point of contact at that university where I can go in and say, look, I've got X number of communities. Do you have expertise in this area? And here's what we're looking for. But I had to go through a data gathering process. I had to go through an exploration process. So I worked with the RSS to identify the core issues, came out with about 50 to 70 project ideas, had them narrow that down, eventually emerged into 23 project ideas. And these are ideas that the RSS in their work with the communities came up with. They didn't these ideas themselves, but working with the communities, looking at the issues for recovery support. These are some of the ideas that they came up with. So I went through a very sort of systematic process of, gathering that information, then vetting it, and trying to see what was viable and the time frame that we had, and then matching them up with universities who already had somewhat of a track record and working with, and most universities do, particularly if you're a state university with a mission, and particularly if you're a land grant or sea grant, you have relationships with communities. So to build on those relationships in order to provide that technical assistance, that was sort of the process that I went through in identifying and providing support for these projects.
So Chris, let me ask you, given Olivia's answer and in your presentation, you talked a little bit about the analytic support and the data and the products that you generate. How does FEMA go about sharing that knowledge, those products, that data with the larger research community and emergency management community?
Yeah, good question. Somebody might not answer. There are, and this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, because I don't deploy the data anymore, but I think it gets disseminated through the stakeholders in recovery, the states. We're trying to get a similar framework, national disaster recovery support framework in the states, and it would be disseminated that way. I think that's how it would go. There is let me just jump in, and FEMA does have another group called Higher Education. Wendy Walsh will be speaking later on. Their focus at the moment is in creating a network of universities to help encourage development of curriculum for emergency managers. And so she's at least laying down that network of contacts at universities for that. And we have sort of a dashed line to them, but we deal with a disaster in the field, and it would be nice to have that sort of summary that Olivia alluded to is, okay, you have an engineering need, what universities in that state already have leaned in to say that they would support those efforts? I'm answering a different question.
Can I just also point out, one of the things that I've done, I come from a research development and research administrative background, coupled with marketing, coupled with fundraising. One of the core things is marketing, is getting that message out. One of the things that I do is a lot of FaceTime on the front end when I go out to a disaster. Not only with the communities, but also with the universities. One of the things in that morning session was this idea of communicating your value. I don't know that universities do it that well. I don't know that FEMA does it. Well, I'm going to say FEMA doesn't do it that well. So the idea of creating, whether it's through social media, whether it's through face-to-face, whether it's through PSAs, to get that message out and to communicate to the universities, this is the way that we can integrate you into our framework, but we need to know what you bring to the table in order to help with this community recovery. And to say it in such a way that it's accessible. I think there was mention that, in order to make this fun. Usually the work that we do is so, it can be, you have to say it in a way in order to make it accessible and make it personally meaningful. One of the best ways to engage a researcher is to talk about her research. And you start her talking all day long. So, how does this recovery integrate into the research that I'm doing or the courses that I'm teaching? Help me to think through that process. But a lot of this is marketing and messaging that I think we have to amp up a bit.
So Phil, one quick observation. It's not a panacea, right? Because there are many, many more universities and programs than that, but it's an easy, obvious way to begin by building and bridging for universities who have such a program.
So Bill, you talked a lot about planning networks and the need to integrate planning and for it to be more effective in driving towards action. Since most disasters do not involve the federal government, what do you see as the relationship between the professional associations, and reference APA, and academia in rethinking EM and building long-term capacity?
That's a good question. I think right now in the universities, particularly the big research universities, these pockets are very small that would engage, or are ready to engage, or have the knowledge to engage. And I think with marketing, you mentioned, the ability to, of an academic to work with communities, that needs to be built up. And it was heartening, and that's a key link to do that, is with professional practice organizations, the profession. And oftentimes there's two kind of streams. There's the professional organization that meets, and there's the research community in the same profession. And you don't see a lot of overlap in the attendance. And the young faculty particularly are under a lot of pressure to publish and to get tenure. And to engage is not in their interest. You know? And then they're not trained to do it anyway. And I think that there are people like land grants at AMU and places like that, where Texas A&M, where there's a huge ability, much to connect with, like it's almost like having your own professional association that works with communities within the university. There's an issue though of linking many of the faculty don't link with that engagement process. And I think it was great this morning to see this assemblage of chancellors and presidents giving that signal, because that doesn't always happen. I haven't heard that happen. It's always about something else. Even if you get my head in the head with a 2x4 of a major disaster like Harvard. It's just, but I think we have a ways to go. We can do it. I can go on.